Hello everyone and welcome. Yes, my name is Arafire and welcome back to yet another episode of Look Out and Shout. So today we are going to be reviewing Fanstoys Tesla 2.0. Now Percy isn't a character I particularly cared about, but the more I looked at the images and seeing the x-transbots version as well, I thought it would be quite cool to have a Perceptor in the collection. I'm also inadvertently started a movie bot shelf. Didn't really mean for that to happen, and I thought you can't have a movie bot shelf without your very own Percy. And don't worry about the x-transbot version, we'll get into that. So let's take a look for science. And here is Tesla in his robot mode, and he does come across as dull straight out of the box. That's because the metallic red, the cherry red that's used, with it being a cherry red and then with it being metallic, it does come across as dull. But it's not to say it's an unattractive colour, it's just not a vibrant hot rod type of red. Still, it's a very good looking red. But he does look quite good, he's very tune accurate, and picking him straight out of the box, there's a lot of heft there. There's a die cast to plastic ratio, very much in the favour of die cast. You're getting a very hefty bot here. It's a little bit tight on tolerances, particularly around the shoulders, and for some reason the hip skirts, they're very tight to get stuff lifted up and moved to get legs into position. Not that you feel you're going to necessarily break it, but it's possibly tighter than you'd expect it to be. But he looks really, really good. He is of a good size, surprising amount of heft, very tune accurate, very G1. I can't say it's anything more than what a Masterpiece Perceptor really should look like, a G1 inspired Masterpiece Perceptor. It is very good, it does the job, it does it very, very well. One thing I do want to cover off is actually the ankles. Now, they do have movement to them and fair movement, but at the same time I wanted a little bit more. And I just feel that ankle tilt is a little bit lacking. But that said, he can get into some very good poses, which I'll show you some photos at the end. When you get the hip skirts lifted up, which again, very tight, once you get them up and everything moved out the way, you can hear the squeaking going on. You've got good bend. Stuff will move and it will hold. More ratchets than there are friction joints. It is fine, but I'm surprised, I guess, by the lack of ankle rotation. Or maybe I expect too much nowadays. We've been spoiled with some great articulation for figures. But yeah, you can hear the squeakiness on some of it. Not necessarily a bad thing. It's certainly not a floppy mess. Very far from it. But yeah, the tolerance issues. I mean, there's a waist rotation. There's no ab crunch to my knowledge. But waist rotation is very good. That's on a ratchet. You can't argue with some of that. But the posability of this figure is really, really good. Now, talking about the microscope, telescope or periscope or whatever scope, this actually comes detached out of the box, so you have to slide it on and it holds quite nicely. What you can do with it, of course, is if you hold it here, you can extend it out by rotating it at the top, and that's as far as it goes. It's not a working microscope, which is a shame, because the original G1 toy was, if I'm right, I think the original G1 toy was actually a working microscope, but wouldn't that be something if Fanstoys not only made a very expensive Transformer toy and a collectible, but actually made it a functioning microscope? Is that the new age of toy collecting? For accessories, and he comes with a few, but we'll start off with guns. He comes off with his different type of chest plate, which is a solid one, more tune accurate, I guess you say. The only thing I think it maybe looks a bit too flat panel, but I haven't tried putting it on yet. What he comes with is the clear translucent one where you can see sort of the gubbins in between. I think that looks a little bit nicer, a bit more detailing, but you can have a faux panel to go in its place to give a more tune aesthetic. Weapons wise, he comes with a couple. Now this may be more familiar to people. This is kind of his, I guess, scientific weapon or scalpel, more rocket launchery sort of thing that is reminiscent of the G1 cartoon, at least to my knowledge it is. He also comes with again, a fairly familiar one. This is like a shortened down rifle with nice scope to it, but it actually extends out to a full-on sniper rifle, which is actually quite cool. He can hold it in both arms, holding the barrel. It's more aimed at IDW stylized for Perceptor, And don't worry, we'll get to that. But I do like the fact that you can basically store this weapon in short stacked version or longer one as you see fit. Of course, we touched on IDW. One thing that he does come with in spades is alternative heads. Now, we could say what this is in response to, but, you know, we'll maybe not look into that too hard, not just yet anyway. So there's actually a lot of heads to go through. What I'm going to do is take individual photos and you'll see a little clip of them all on there. But what he does come with as well is not only the internal heads, but the internal faces within that you can apply. And I'll try and get that into focus. And that's more of a goatee-inspired IDW sort of face, not necessarily IDW, but I'm kind of getting the sinister vibe more so of it. And it might not pick it up on camera, but there's more of a furrowed brow on the bridge of his nose. And he comes with another one, which is again a bit more of a smirkier face. Great detailing on these, great facial expressions. But let's have a look at some of those alternative heads and what expression he may be carrying. Right, let's get him transformed up, shall we? And for the mode that everyone wanted to see first, yes, this is in his tank mode. I know. Why does Perceptor have a tank mode? It's okay, it's a feature, it's there. It's really based off the Marvel comics where Perceptor could really shoot in his microscope mode, so why not make him a tank as well? And really the only thing that makes him a tank is these very, very tiny tank treads on the sides that are very tiny and very easy to break. You can store the guns on him as well, although I would say the red rifle that's coming around now doesn't fit on, that barely sits there, one slight knot that's going to fall off. The other gun is plugged in a bit more. Transformation was not fun. There were parts of it that felt inspired and quite good fun to flip around and good engineering. And there were some parts of it that just fought you and seemed needless. Getting the head down and the shoulders over his head, it felt like it should have been more straightforward than it was. Now, okay, you could argue that that is Fanstoys. Complicated transformations is what they do, but I don't know. It's not the biggest bot in the world, and he's effectively becoming a square, so this shouldn't be too taxing. Yet it was. Another thing that I think could be a bit of a problem with him is that it's a lovely metallic paint job, but by the time you hold it in place and clip it all together, you're going to get thumbprints over that metallic paint. That's like when you have a chrome paint scheme on some other Transformers. The thumbprints will be there. They'll be very apparent, and you've got to really push some heavy pegs in place with a lot of support and a lot of force behind it. I wonder if this is going to have a lot of prints on it if you flip it back and forward a few times. I can't imagine you would be transforming Perceptor all that much. I don't think many people would display Perceptor in their alt mode versus the robot mode, but it is something to be mindful of. I just want to say as well, the hands, you can actually see just here, this is where the hands from robot mode tuck inside. And they were so tight. Some of these joints are super tight. I'm concerned if I'll ever get them out again. But anyway, that's enough moaning. It's a tank. Or rather, that is a tank. And there he is in microscope mode, and that was actually a harder transformation than it was getting him into his tank mode. Not enjoyable. The legs are very hard to transform and get to stay in place. I mean, it's fine once it gets there, don't get me wrong, it's definitely a microscope. If I, just get that right. So he's looking at his tray. It certainly is a Perceptor looking microscope. It is what it is, but this transformation isn't that fun. The tank mode possibly a bit better, and it shares a lot of the same characteristics of it, getting it into tank mode versus getting it into microscope mode, but it's just, it's not fun. It's annoying to get to a mode that is a microscope, which is hardly fun in itself. I'm not even certain that I've even done it completely right. The instructions weren't fantastic. But hey, it is a masterpiece scale G1 Perceptor in microscope mode. No question it's not. You can certainly reenact many scenes, such as, you know, when he's lacking in Cybertronian and he's stuck in microscope mode. You can use it for like that. But yeah, it was a hard transformation. The legs kept wanting to come untabbed. And yeah, I guess at the end of the day, he is a microscope. I will say I'm not going to dot this figure points just because of its transformation. The transformation is a big part of it, but it's still a very good looking, very hefty figure. I do enjoy it. I do love its accessories. It's just a shame the transformation is a bit fiddly when you're trying to get it into a mode that's somewhat ordinary. But no question, out of the 3 modes, the robot mode is where it's at. I mean, the other 2 modes, they're there, but Perceptor was never known for having a great alt mode, but his robot mode is pretty special. One thing I'll say straight out of the box is I was not prepared for Tesla to be so poseable and so photogenic. I've got him into some great poses, and the photos, he just seems to really pop and shine at certain angles. I don't think it's necessarily down to the paint scheme. I think it's just down to the right proportions and the right build and stock. I picked him out of the box and I was very much reminded of the Fanstoys Jabber, which I was somewhat underwhelmed with. I thought it was too small, too slender. And with Perceptor, I was pleasantly surprised. I think they've gone and done the right things at the right time. This is where you show the experience of Fanstoys. This is where you see that they've been in the game before, they've honed their craft. You look at the posability on the back of the boxes of the angles you can get him into, and he's surprisingly hefty for a bot that's not particularly tall. Maybe 8 inches, maybe, and that's still got a lot going for it. And it's a triple changer, yes it is. The elephant in the room is x-transbots. Now, I haven't got their Janssen, their version of Perceptor. The question's going to be, is which is the better Perceptor, which one do you want? Now, some people have done reviews, Deluxe to name one of them, have done a side-by-side reviews, and a lot of people are saying there really isn't a lot in it. If you get either the x-transbots version or the Fanstoys version, you are going to be very happy with their representation of Perceptor, whichever one you go with. And really it comes down to price. I would say the only thing that slightly goes in maybe x-transbots' favour is that the paint scheme that they've used is metallic on this, metallic red on the Fanstoys version, but the x-transbots version is matte. And they've gone for a matte on the blue, whereas x-transbots went for a metallic blue. So they've inverted each other's colour schemes, if you will. And I actually think I prefer the x-transbots version from what I've seen. I think the blue, being a baby blue kind of colour, pops that bit more. And the red, as nice a red as it is, it's a very cherry red, and metallic can come across a little bit dull. But that aside, this is a G1 looking Perceptor, very G1 head with IDW heads, which they did steal off x-transbots. You can't say they didn't. It wasn't part of the original release. x-transbots did it. Fanstoys did not want to be outdone. Hey, as long as we're calling it for what it is. But still, a very good version, and I give him 4 Rodimus Star Badges out of 5. I wasn't prepared to like him as much as I do, and I'm really impressed with him. I think what Fanstoys have done is got a very good looking Perceptor out. It's a shame it's taken them 2 attempts to get Perceptor right, but hey, that's the advancement of engineering for you. And there you go, that is my review of Fanstoys Tesla 2.0. What do you guys think? Do you like the look of the Percy? Do you prefer the x-transbots version? Leave a note in the comment below, I'd love to know what you think. But thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you on the next one.